Foundation Course Kabbalah, Part 2, Lesson 39. Rabbi Michael-ben-Pesach, Portnaar. The Zohar and the Tree of Life of Ari are the two biggest pieces that were ever given to mankind. Until the arrival of the Mashiach will appear nothing higher, and there will be no higher experience and salvation than that. Everything is in those two. Zohar is the basis of everything, and the Tree of Life was given to Ari to understand Zohar. Now we continue with the structure of the worlds, which is the Kabbalah itself. We now going to talk only about the building of the Creator, all his powers. Outer mind and inner mind. The inner mind knows no bitter, no bittersweet. Is a completely different dimension of the higher world, and also feeling. When I speak of feeling, I do not mean our childlike feeling in our world that we use. Not that. Feeling is also higher sense, the feeling of the inner man. Those are two things that you can use both. The inner mind and the inner feelings. And then when you trust, when we start with the Zohar and the Tree of Life of Ari, you will be awestruck. Trust must be there. The doubts you keep for yourself. Everyone has doubts. You must work on yourself to eliminate those doubts. Everyone has doubts, of course, but you must know how it works. Everything is spiritual, higher, qua forces. Zohar is uniquely suited to arouse feelings in us. Feeling, we certainly do not know what feeling is. Our feeling is childlike appearance, but we must also develop spiritual feeling that gives us Zohar. With all kinds of different forms of, you're going to feel what all those forces are, and that you not only hear about spiritual objects of radiation, that you're going to feel. That's the point. Those two sources. Then we pierce to the heaven. Absolutely. When you should want is that everything, your whole attitude, your life, you must want to bring pleasure, not attaining. That's secondary. You must not put it as a basis, for then you are wrong. It's very fine. You must do everything. You have to say, I do it also because of the only creative power. For the source of life, I do it. Only in that way can you bring yourself in line with that higher power. But if you say, I want it because I do this, or because I want to attain, also in the spiritual selfishness exists. You have to be smart to tell that you do it, but not for yourself. Everything you do for yourself, from above, qua forces, it will be looked upon as if it were a child. We want to bring as much life down to ourselves. Try to bring joy because of the source of life. Because you live forever. Life will always be unbreakable, and if you want to do enjoyable, then it means that you will do anything to bring yourself in line, but not from your perspective that you want to use that resource for yourself. Then you're wrong. By Zohar, we begin to develop our feelings. Zohar adds volume in yourself. Look, if we just sit in the second part, because how did Ari, via Zohar, Ari came to the wonderful Tree of Life. Step by step, you will begin to feel that Tree of Life. Absolutely. Zohar brings enormous space. You're going to expand yourself because your earthly will be pierced with light, and then you feel it. You will feel it within yourself, as it were, expand from inside. You will from inside expand according to the feeling, to true power. That will Zohar give to us. Ari provides our inner mind, the inner feeling of Zohar, also understanding, the inner understanding. Both generate each other. The more feeling is developed, the more inner mind can expand and make you stronger. you're going to attain and understand more. And the more you understand with your inner mind, the broader and deeper gets your understanding. This is a positive form of butter one's bread on both sides. The structure of the world is fixed. God fixed and will be fixed for all time. That's very interesting. Everything we learn is the eternal, and that's what counts. This structure of the worlds, this spiritual ladder existed since the creation, exists and will exist. One arrives at a certain level. Everyone understands each other because you speak from experience that you have built there. First there was just like a blank sheet. The whole world was blank. There was nothing, just the light, Ein Sof. Everything was nothing else, nothing but light, and then it came into his mind, as we say in human language, from that maker of the world. Whoever it is does not matter. We experience him only as light, as something that does good to us, what gives us life. That's the only thing we're talking about, and do not speculate about what is the God. What is the Creator? What we receive, only about that we can talk. What we cannot receive, we are not talking about. So in the beginning, it was just like a blank blackboard or a blank sheet of paper, and then it came into his mind. The thought came to him to create a creation so that they might know him, know his goodness. Actually for himself, and not as it was twisted in our world. It was thought that everything was created for man. Beautiful, a nice thought, but it is a wrong thing. And man is, as it were, the crown of creation. But not for man the world is created. The world was created for the maker of the world. A producer of washing machines makes everything for himself. He produces washing machines for himself, or not. Can we say that he produces them for us? We must understand that very well. Of course, he made them for himself. Similarly, the Creator. He has the ability of giving, and he would also like to share with others, also give to others, having contact with them so he can communicate as it were. It's not that he needs us, absolutely not, because eternal life needs nothing. On the other hand, it was nevertheless his wish that life, true life, would have penetrated to all corners of reality. First there was only light, single homogeneous light, and then was created. First came a dot, because everything starts with a dot. That's the smallest thing there is, a dot. Here comes a very wonderful thing. As in the universe, everything starts with a dot. First, the smallest particle, a dot of matter, let's say so. Also on paper, there are also the smallest particles, a point. So we should also see and make a parallel between the universe itself, which is made up, and the letters and the empty places of the paper. Therefore, his creation plan is presented. The whole creation is displayed in the 22 letters of the Hebrew language. Just as creation, there are spaces and there are places filled. Similarly, there are those letters which are also constructed in that way, and particles of the letters, elements of the letters. Sometimes you see in the Hebrew letters empty places, then filled up again. All things we will learn. So we make parallels whereby we, from the letters themselves, first from the letter itself, then the letter combinations, and in the letters are also wrapped several letters within each other. Or with each other. And then there are the letters that form words, and they form sentences. That is all that was created, and is, and will be, is all in the Torah. All creatures that will ever appear, everything is there, and therefore one does not need to get up from his chair as long as you learn, read, that you're communicating with it. Then you take in a little bit of the whole universe in yourself. Do not understand, because that is, of course, nonsense. If we think we can understand anything, no, we can take in ourselves. So first there was a point. There came a point from him. It was like a round point, and from it came to the sides light. There was room in which creation would come, and that is similar to the whole universe. All there is like a point. Our universe is just one point for everything that still exists outside the universe, outside our universe. And in that point, later, the whole creation has been built up. And that's no coincidence. That is in the earth, because the earth is also the epicenter of, and let's say the lowest point of the whole universe. You will not find anywhere else such a thing as with humans. The lowest point of the whole universe is. And we see Mars, Neptune, so many planets, infinite, and everything serves only this place, the earth. Everything serves. All others are higher, of course, some much higher than the earth, but all celestial bodies serve this place where we are now to keep us alive in all forms. There are many forms that sustain us. Everything really works for us. Also, all the angels, all the powers from above, all are set for us. For no creature is so close, answers to the forces of the Creator as man. Only man has in himself good and evil. The worlds do not. They do have elements such as light and darkness, as it were, the power of grace and the strength of severity. That they do have. These too, but they are, as it were, given from above, but which are always separated from each other. But man has both of them. That's the point of the creation of man. And why had the worlds to be created? The worlds are forces that are created naturally to put man in, but not for man, but for something else. The worlds from the outer side of creation and the human forms, the inner side of creation. What the worlds cannot, man can. We will see what it all means. For in the world occurs also a certain correction, whereby the good, the sparks of light, are filtered out, brought up, and what remains is like darkness. The darkness remains under, or unclean powers, klipot, stay under, and what is filtered out, still certain elements of the world are built with it. What was intended, which was achieved in the worlds. Also certain corrections. Everything is correction. The good was, as it were, separated from the evil, which is also stated in Genesis. God said, "Let there be light," and God separated light from darkness. We'll all see where it took place. It was already the whole of Genesis, the beginning. The act of creation also speaks of the creation of Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya, of the worlds, that we will soon find here. And also there, the first correction was done. How? Good was separated from evil. The light was separated from darkness. Light, you should see as follows. All the same, different words, but it is the same. Good forces and unclean forces, pure forces and impure forces. On the one hand, it is correction. On the one hand, it is refinement. On the other hand, okay, we get the light upwards. We get the good up, but the darkness we let down. What will happen with that? It's like there's something of waste. How then in creation can something come what was not good? You understand? So light is and darkness was not good. Or pure forces and not pure forces. Pure forces are brought up. Impure forces, that means there's still something in the creation of God, or God forbid that there is another power that rules over these evil forces. And that's huge. This question is something like a worm that eats at the head of that man who tries to penetrate with his own earthly intellect, as do philosophers. You get no answer, because you should know of the divine instruction. All these worlds, it was done so, made so that the good was taken out and separated, because what it's about in Genesis always is talked about. He, the Creator, separated, makes a separation between high waters and low waters, between light and the creation is nothing but separation of good and evil. Because first everything was, as it were, mixed. We will see why everything was together. We will see exactly how it all was without having to be in the shoes of the Creator. Absolutely not. Only that which is possible, because we are obviously a product of creation. So the world was created in that way. The worlds are the outward side of creation, whereby good forces, as it were pulled up, and the evil forces, let's say bad. I mean all what is waste from the good forces remain under. Is it perfect? Does it perfect work? No. For everything that has not yet been selected and been drawn up and is not added to the light, yet retains, as it were, in the dark, impure forces, and therefore the Creator, after having created all these worlds, the outer side of creation, he created man, who has all forces in him. All the forces of the whole creation he has in himself. Good and evil, absolutely. Everything in himself he has. Lest that man, and that man is saddled with the task to that evil, or of that darkness which was not corrected through the worlds themselves, that the man then does what is needed, do the rest of the work by correcting it himself. That he and all that evil, darkness, impure forces, by his doing changes in the good. At the end of time we will see, when the man has corrected himself, that all was needed. Also, where one in the past thought it was evil, is not evil. It's just a disguise, dressed as evil, but is good. It is a good one. We will see that is a necessary, these two forces, and only man can then perform the finishing touch, and not the angels. The angels' forces are angels, and then he has what we call Boré. Boré is the creator. He has drawn himself out from that point we have talked about, where later creation would arise, and there remains an empty space. And in that place, he pulled himself out from that place, for his light was first everywhere. And then he had to create a place that was empty of light. Otherwise, how can you create a place for someone? You have to release him first, and he has a place for himself. If you do everything for him, he cannot go further. So it is with the creation. The light has first left that point, and then came a form of a ray, a very thin stream, so that the man, that creation, could cope with. For suppose the light comes in, that, let's say, that point what was intended for the creation, and then first it came out and then it comes back in. Well, then it is nothing. Then he would illuminate that point so much that there is no place for creation. Then it is just again as Ein Sof. It was then necessary that a trickle would arrive, a thin stream. It's just like in a barn. You're in a barn, and via a crack, the sunlight comes through in the morning, and then you can cope with it. Suppose you sleep somewhere and suddenly a lot of light, so it is also here. Everything must be digestible. So a trickle came to that, a small ray. And this ray came completely from top to what we call our world. But just not yet touched our world, because our world itself is, as it were, under the spiritual, below the level of life, as it were. We shall see what it all means. So the light came, so, say from here, the beam had, as it were, built up what we call the worlds, forces, the areas of forces that would be necessary to eventually, the whole point, to fill all creation with light, where the whole of creation would come to fulfillment, and just as the Creator would experience the same fullness. And the initial reception was always. Of course, it started with the highest reception, and the light itself is naturally singular light, indivisible, but the whole creation experiences it as consisting of 5: Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Ze'ah, and Malchut. 5 of those forces, emanations of light, from high to low. And then again the highest, step by step. First was the highest. The first 5 was, it were, radiated, which is Keter. Then, following receipt, light Keter came here. Keter, which are 5, there where the creation is built up. Everything that exists consists of those 5. So first came the receipt, and that was called Keter, the highest receipt which creation can receive. But also that ray could not directly, that ray that came to the point, be received. Not received completely, because if that ray would be fully received, it would have been the full correction, which could only be received, say, only half of it, and the ray thus came only up to the tabur, and the rest not. Why not? There was no strength yet for under the place we call tabur, no power to receive it. And now builds the master, whoever it is. We do not know what it is. We can only experience and describe his radiations. Effect, but no more, despite the fact that we ascribe all kinds of attributes to it. But now he builds all forces, logical, reason, and sequel. So there was first higher, first receipt, which could not come down, could not be received beyond. The place is called tabur. Just like in humans, tabur is navel. Everything we call also in the higher man, qua strengths. And then a second reception, chokhmah, then the third reception, bina, and all. So was received 5 times above what we call the tabur, a kind of boundary where the light can come into the creation, not below. Until it came to the sag. Galgalta, you should see so. The whole creation is meant for the light that is completely transparent, as it were, contains nothing except the power to make the reception reservoirs, to create bodies in which that light could be received. That is creation. Creation is something that receives in itself. Keter, the initial receipt, was very thin. There's no speaking yet of the kilim, of real coarsening of the light. Then came the second, ab, chokhmah. Also, that is not sufficient to receive real light, is coarsening of the light, but just a little bit. Bina is already the first reaction, so to speak, on the creation. Bina is the power of giving. Bina, so it is, the forces are structured so you just need to learn what forces, what quality they have. Bina is just, wants to give, but not receive. She has just enough with the power of mercy. So the Creator created it. We will see later what exists, 2 forces, mercy and severity. Representatives from mercy is Bina. The Hasidim come into the world by Bina. And then we have seen there is also severity. Severity is due to the Malchut, and Gvorot, severity outcomes. Everything through the Malchut, and Ze'ah is in between. Actually, it is so these 2 forces, Chokhmah and Bina, which is a couple, forces from above, which are like a pair of, say, higher worlds, higher powers, attributes. And Ze'ah and Malchut are the lower pair, and they all correspond to the name of the Creator, Abaya. We have said this is also the creation. We need to look to the sky to know how it looks, how Creator created the world. It is exactly the same as I take a blank paper, and that is just as Ein Sof everywhere. If you see between the letters those empty places, which means that there is also light, and everything which is black with letters, those are the creatures. So you have to see it, and then you need nothing more. In those 22 letters, you can display everything. Just like in any profession, you have had a particular jargon. And in that language, you can make everything. Aerospace, for instance, also has a particular jargon. Similarly, in terms of the highest of the highest. Qua forces of the universe, everything was built by the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. For all mankind it is given, just as the jargon for electronics has been given for the electronics, and they will all make use of it. Similarly, music language, the notes are given to the Italian. It's a very musical language, and we all use the language of music, etc. The language of the Creator, the spiritual, is the language of Kabbalah, the code that He gave to mankind. That is the Bina. Bina has the feature of giving, Hasidim, grace, and therefore she would like to give only to the lowest, and the Malchut is the purpose of everything. In all these 5 forces, Malchut is the required. For Malchut, all the other 4 work. Let's say the properties of the higher, but all the focus on that Malchut. Malchut is also kingdom. Kingdom here, let's say, on earth, but everywhere there are forces who are the Malchut. Malchut can be anywhere, but here was an idea that especially right here on earth, everything here, all the laws of the universe are, as it were, experienced, and the only creative forces here on earth are experienced like a king. But Bina is Hasidim, mercy, and she wants to give to the lower, Ze'ah and Malchut. Also here after the third receipt, the Sag, which is also Bina, and mercy can be anywhere, can take place anywhere or everywhere. There is no prohibition. It can get through the tabur, the light of creation, not, but mercy can. Everywhere it is not prohibited. Later we will see why it is not prohibited. Impure forces do not respond to grace. They flee from grace. When a man brings mercy to the day, and then somewhere there is a culprit, has he then something? He has no interest in it, you understand. He cannot respond to it, you understand. Impure forces have no interest in mercy, have no food in it. Very important, and therefore only at the bottom you see here, only on earth, lower regions, there are impure forces, there they manifest themselves. The Sag, Bina, goes all the way down because her wish is to give also to her Ze'ah and Malchut, and just here at the bottom are the Ze'ah and Malchut. So the two Sfirot, let's say two overarching Sfirot. Sag came down, and from below then, for the first came up the forces of Malchut, who just came back up to the Bina and placed the boundary, as it were, from until here I can accept it, but not here yet. And here is the first manifestation of the two forces in the world. We have said Hasidim is above, mercy up to here, and here was the wealth of Gurot, of severity. This was not yet seen from above, was not noticeable, but there we have for the first time, here we see the coding that in one way or another would end up in the human. But here we have said above is mercy, and here we have said in the worlds were created the forces, and then make the separation therefrom as in Genesis. God separated between the upper waters and the lower waters, etc. All separations. Just so we see for the first time the separation, it is still before the beginning of Genesis. It is not what we all still are talking about before, is not yet in the Torah, as it were. The Torah is a bit further. The Bible of Genesis is not here yet. It is included, of course, in terms of forces, but is not yet here. We for the first time have a division, and everything that happens in the higher must then also take place in the lower. That is the law. If something happens in the higher, then it should also take place in the lower echelons. Now we see the separation for the first time. Those two, mercy is above, as it were, and at the bottom is Gvura. We have seen that the light first comes in and then the light goes out. Completely why? For new kilim, create new forms of creation, to create new forms, suppose that light just came up here and nothing more. No development. The intention, the Creator showed us to create something. It must first enter and then it must get out. And whatever comes next, the light comes on to the next, which also carries with it the first. We said just like a fountain principle. First the light came down here, like a fountain as a tool, that fountain. And then it is, as it were, reverberated upwards, and then it never attained the same height. It can never attain the same height going upwards. The strength decreases, and then it flows into a different lesser, and yet another and less again. But always you see first. This is a very important principle. It always comes in first, and then it is pulled out. Why? Just like a fountain, and therefore new cascades of a fountain are built. New forms of existence in the spiritual, and so too here. Here we have seen at the bottom of the Bina, which we call Nekodot, the Sag, also here the light was completely drawn up. as well as from the lower part. At the bottom of the Sag is now the division. Upper part Keter, Chochma, Bina, Hesed, Gvura, and 1/3 part of Tiferet, which are now Kilim, where the light is allowed to enter, and below 2/3 of Tiferet, that's Parsa, the dividing line of the light, and at the bottom of the Parsa are 2/3 of Tiferet, Netzach, Chod, and Yisod. 4 Sfirot where the light may not come. And now it goes again, just like Keter. Chochma and Bina is the fountain principle that goes to the bottom until the beam comes to the bottom and goes up again. And then comes cascade. Less it became, so too was it here. Now everything comes up, both the place of Gurot as Hasidim. Everything goes back upstairs to Bina because it all comes from Bina, and then it comes a new cascade. On one hand, it was above the fourth. Ma, let's say. Ze'ah, the fourth reception from the top. But below came also a reception, one reception because something happened here. Something extraordinary in which the lower part of the Sag of the Bina was divided in two, different from before. Previously it was so. Cascade after cascade, Keter, Galgalta, Ab, Sag. Now everything comes back up with traces of memory. Again, what we study, all in the spiritual, nothing disappears in the spiritual. We can say, I do not want to think about it anymore. Even if you say, I do not want to think about it, it remains hanging. All always remains. Everything you do will remain. Each misstep you take remains up to eternity. It will be corrected. But it's not like you can say, just like you go to the bakery and buy bread, for example, and you are licensed victual, and the baker buys from you cognac or wine, then you can say, here's your bottle of wine. Give me a loaf of bread. That's possible. So it is here too, equalization between your earnings and your sins. So it happens exactly the same. And not that you say, I have done so much good, but you will not just pay with your good things for your sins. Sins are sins, and good things are good things. Everything depends on the quality, of course, and here is just the higher wisdom, which no human can contain. You must make yourself small so that you just receive, and that is absolutely difficult. How can a Westerner do that? Who thinks I can do this with my mind? Everything is absolutely nonsense. What can somebody tell? So make yourself small and not resist. It's not my wisdom. I speak only about. Try to receive is imperative, otherwise you will not experience the spiritual in this incarnation. Well, then you should come again and again. Do not try to be wise with your earthly sense. It will absolutely not help you in any respect. Overcome it. Put your earthly intellect, your earthly sense below on your feet. Absolutely impossible. All those professors who try to understand Kabbalah, they do not understand a word of Kabbalah, which you should know. Everywhere, not a word. They talk about Kabbalah, but they get nothing. They have absolutely no connection with that matter. We have yet to see the birth of the worlds of Bria, Asiya, Yetzirah. Tell, and the birth of Adam. It is important, and I keep repeating it, because I know how hard it is that you, absolutely not for me, but for the subject we're talking about, that you always humble yourself, as it were. Of course, the word humble is an invective. It's otherwise you understand nothing, receive nothing. That's what counts. Learn that. On all other courses you may, because that's all earthly. Here, what I'm saying is nothing earthly. What can you tell me? Later, when we learn more, then you can. But for the time being, if you now do not understand, I mean you do not have substantive questions, because for that you must first have some affinity, some relationship to the Torah, and you have not yet. I've had hundreds of sleepless nights. It is not easy, not simple. It is working on yourself. Predispose yourself. You want to live in it. not with your head, is impossible. First overall, then details. You should always proceed from the general affairs, general understanding, a framework, a picture, and then look at the details. Also in your daily life, always you look at the core, to who is the boss, and not to details. First look. So again, we have seen the bottom part of Sag, which came down. The Bina is now divided into two. When we say the 10 Sfirot, below we now have 10 Sfirot. If we connect with them, with Sag, together with, we see 10 Sfirot. Now it is less. Everything you should see. Where is that 10 Sfirot? Is it the general 10 Sfirot? Then it is together with Sag, with the upper part of the Bina. Then it is this. Above, 1 Sefirah and 9 have come down. But if you look, for us it is now important what takes place under the Tabur, and then it is 10 Sefirot as a larger. Great men of length. The smaller is perhaps only to the navel of the great man in terms of height, but in itself it has everything, head, arms, etc., including 10 Sefirot. So you always should see it with respect to the whole. Maybe I have 7 in myself, but with respect to myself, I always have my own 10. Do you understand? Therefore, you never should about someone else regarding him, it is 10. He has made efforts, perhaps he has preserved his own 8, and you may have only 6. But in respect to yourself, you always have that 10 in yourself. You don't have competition in the spiritual. Absolutely not. No competition. Competition means one who can give more of himself with respect to the upper, with regard to the single creative power, which is the competition, but not. You must never compete with one another. Now, go all the 10. All what is under the Tabur, where the Sag was, which goes up just as during the Galgalta at Chokhmah, everything goes up. All out to gain, create something new. New, not so new, but everything was already according to these Reshimot, from the traces of the memories that were there. Nothing disappears in the spiritual, so it all goes up, and first it goes just as regularly in the new piece of reception. Above receives just like above again, 5. Always 5 it must be, just like 5 forces, Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Ze'ah, and Malchut. But from the bottom, something special took place. There, from below, there by those 10 Sfirot, from under the Bina, which are divided into 2, there happened something special that needs to be worked out. And there must be a result of that, a new thing. And it came up to Bina because everything always comes up to its source. Always everything returns to the source. That is why we should know that your source is. What is your source? Also, we will slowly learn who your source is. Who is your own root? Who is your own root of your soul? You must first learn to recognize from whom your source is. Ari could see it, absolutely see. We will all learn step by step what it all is. How can people learn what their source is? If you know what your source is, you're halfway there. Have you already done half of the work? But step by step. Which then goes up and is therefore above, regular reception. We call Ma Elyon, meaning higher. Ma also means something that is related to Ze'ah, Ze'erampin, and below that something was created. In the next reception down to here, to the Parsa, because the previous reception, the Bina, below, the light to the Parsa, such a dividing line between where the light may come and where the light cannot come. Only up to where the light may come, to the Parsa, meaning below the Tabur, to this Parsa the light may come. There is something built. What's built? Just as a sort of what we call world, a kind of world means that it has all the facets in itself, has all the 5 Sfirot in itself, which is constructed, in that world we call Nekudim. The name is not yet important, but just know what it is. And that was built according to that form in which it previously took place in the lower part of Bina. So from this moment, from the previous moment when under the Tabur, the Bina under the Tabur was divided in two. From that moment, only in the top part there may enter light, but not in the lower part. So not in the 2/3 of Tiferet, Netzach, Od, Yesod, and Malchut. What has been the result of this system so far? Look, first the light could come with the first reception to the Tabur, light from Chochmah, no more than an Ab. Same with Sag, it first came down, but well, it was reflected just like. And then it can only come into the Parsa, the light. The entire purpose of the whole plan is that each time ways are found with the newer receptions would come whereby all creation, which means up to here, can receive something. For the light, you can. There is a law. Keep in mind, there is no light without a Kli. One cannot experience light when one has no Kli for it. One cannot receive light. Impossible if one does not develop an appropriate Kli for it. So if someone says, I've seen the light, it may be that one, by certain fantasies, impulses, and one sees light. But in the law it's stated, one cannot receive the light if one has no matching Kli for it. What is an appropriate Kli? Kli means receiver, which then has the same properties or has taken on to himself the same characteristics as the light. Then you can receive the light. But just receive light cannot. There is no light without a Kli. You understand? Now the next reception is what we call the world Nekodim, between worlds, as it were. And now all these 5 Sfirot, like here, Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Ze'ah, and Malchut, only it is half of it, just as it was with the Bina. Half of the half was received, and the lower half did not. Similarly, the following receipt is built up, whereby each receipt receives only half. Half of the Keter, half of the Abba Ve'ima, which is called father and mother. Father and mother are a bit like Chochmah and Bina. Is also a pair, and then we said below is Zon, meaning Ze'ah and Malchut. Elon means Malchut, Nukva. Another word, Zon, means Ze'ah and Malchut, another couple. But then again, half. That means only. Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Chesed, and 1/3 Tiferet may be received and not the rest. And if someone there may not be received, then it is not even seen, as if it does not exist. In Kabbalah, we only ever speak of that, where the light can get. If a place now, look, if light still does not come here, then that means that there is no anti-egoistic power yet to receive the light. But here, we are not yet talking about that. The next step after receiving means Partsuf of Bina, from under the Tabur as a new reception, but only half of Keter, half of Abba Ve'ima, and Zon. New names we have got now. We have not had these first. And now it was first. New names, Keter, which we understand one of those forces, Abba Ve'ima, we see that is Chochmah, and Bina. And Zon is Ze'ah and Malchut. So we see a little something, a certain association already, a little united. All has 5, but still we'll see, as it were, the 3 partsufim of 3 parts consists such a world of 3 receptions, and is therefore called the world. If a particular reception is made up of some receptions, then it is called world. World means more receptions. And among those we call world Nekodim, but underneath is no light. At the bottom is no light. Why? We have said there was no light inside, and everything from now on, everything consists only of half. Of course, everything is made up of these 5 Sfirot, or if we write them in full with Ze'ah, which has 6 Sfirot, it is 10. But we speak in Kabbalah always of what it is there. Where the light can come, where the Masach is, where there is anti-egoistic force. That exists, and where is no Masach means screen anti-egoistic forces just like it does not exist. Therefore, whenever a person receives selfishly, it's like he does not exist at that time. You can understand. Whenever you commit a sin means that you get something in yourself, in your kilim, receiving kilim for yourself. Then you get selfish for yourself alone. What the heck is wrong to receive for yourself? Then you, as it were, in terms of eternity, give in terms of your share, it is seen as if you're not there. And that is why on Yom Kippur, every Jew says in his prayer, write me in the book of life. That is the book of life where the light is allowed to come, and where the light cannot get it. That is your result of your sin. You put yourself into darkness. You understand? We are going further, the following. First, as a result of that, Bina, bottom Bina, came all light upwards, divided in two, and there was what we call built the world of Nekudim. These receptions after each other, Keter, Abba V'Yima, father and mother, and Ze'ah and Malchut, Zon, but the light always wants to enter. Here you should see it this way. What does half mean? Half of Keter, Chochma, Bina, Hesed, Guvara, and 1/3 of Tiferet. That we call the half of Keter, etc., but the rest is just seen as if it does not exist. If there is no force at all, those places, also in humans, also in the creation, where there are no forces to receive, that is considered non-existent, and therefore it is when you come in contact with people who are very famous, often stars, etc., if you come with them to sit under four eyes, you see the more they show themselves as a human, I do not mean what the press thinks and not what you see on the stage, then you see that everything. Then you look at the man from inside and you will see it is full of emptiness. From himself he knows almost nothing. You understand? So his shadow is longer than he. People think that he has something, but everything he has is below the level of life. Everything is selfish reception, or life or semblance of life. Therefore, it is also said that culprits are in their life already dead. What does that mean? He thinks only of matter. He only works for matter, but there is no possibility for him not to receive for himself. And in the context of eternity, in the book of the Creator, what we call he is not seen. Absolutely not seen. And they go pull themselves deeper and deeper down. The next was, and now I look what is happening here in the world that we call Nekudim. It was so that in each of these 6 Sfirot may come the light from above. Here the light may come in, but not below. Down in the Keter it was also the case. Half of the Keter was so that the light, the limitation in the world, Nekudim, the creation can get limitation on itself, but the light has no limitation. The light wants just to penetrate. The light from above, we can limit ourselves, that we have no power, but the light wants to ever penetrate, and that's why we feel deficiency and sometimes pain. But the light wants to come, and we will not let it in because we cannot, of course, or do not want to, is even worse. And so it was here. So first it was for the half, and half can, then because the half here sits as it were mercy everywhere, Hasidim, and then comes the light of Chokhmah, light of wisdom, light of creation, as it were, which will come because it may come in the Hasidim. Hasidim is mercy, no problem, and comes in there and then breaks, as it were, that border. Why did that happen? How could it happen? All from above, all the structure from above. The idea was so. Again, the intention is to penetrate the whole of creation in terms of light. Now, it was already up here. It was already up to here. To the Parsah could all the light come in. And up here we have seen, in the next parts of Nekudim, we have seen half of it May, half of Keter, half of Abba V'Yima, and half of Zon. The first the light came back to Keter, and the Keter is actually still. We have seen has many features only of light. So there it was penetrated, the light, end was 10 sfirot there. A full keter is thus. The light came again in sight. Now, there came light upwards and came in again light. So the light came in and it was full keter, meaning 10 sfirot that was allowed. Why? Because keter is still thin. There may 10 sfirot, okay, because it is still above the parsa, where the line under the sag, the lower bina, there came the light to 1/3 of tiferet. Here it is allowed. Here is still far higher than the parsa. There it can't do wrong. So here we have 10 sfirot of keter. And then it went on to Abba V'Ima. And that was also 10 sfirot, because Abba V'Ima is still Chokhmah, and Bina, which are also thin, less but still thin. This was also 10 sfirot, because the intention was to drill through and up to now thereby achieve full correction. There it could, but Ze'ah and Malchut, there are already forces where shortage of the light of Chokhmah is palpable, because Keter just receives. Chokhmah is no problem. Chokhmah also receives. Bina is not interested in Chokhmah, who is the power of grace. But if there comes need, then there is no danger. If I do not need something and then something is handed to me that I do not need, for example, I've never had any drugs or cigarettes, never thought of it, never tried even, though I'm very curious by nature, never done, I do not know why, but others do. Bina can receive light, Chokhmah, but she does not need it. She's allowed. Abba V'Ima, we have seen, is full 10 sfirot. Okay, does not matter to her. The whole purpose, the problem are Ze'ah and Malchut, because they have in one way or another a lack of the light of Chokhmah to bring the light of creation down. That's the purpose. And the lower beings, we are the product of Ze'ah and Malchut, so that they could receive on the lower level. That's the purpose. Above, beautiful light, it must be brought down here, you see. We also need to muster forces so that we can go up and bring down the light with ourselves, just as Moses did. I mean, Moses went to the mountain. We will see, it's all spiritual, absolutely. We all go in pilgrimage to Mount Sinai, it's absolutely spiritual. You must go to the mountain, which means getting from the higher and be able to bring it down. That's it. So the Bina, which also receives not much, is 10 sfirot, but when she tries to pass on the 10 sfirot to Ze'ah and Malchut, which had no power for that, and thus followed the breaking of Kilim. There were already Kilim. We have seen the 10 sfirot already under the tabor of Bina. The 10 sfirot, and now they break. All the 10 sfirot below. Everything that was under the parsa, where no light came, there it came, but where the place of sfirot was. We speak of sfirot only when they are able to receive the light. But finally, they were, though, sitting there under the parsa. 2/3 of Tiferet, Netzach, Od, Yesod, and Malchut. From under the parsa was mixed with half of Ze'ah and Malchut, who could receive the light. And here's an extremely interesting case. The piece of light, look here, all we need to correct is that half of the Ze'ah and Malchut, you see. We have seen what is above the parsa, where the light could come, light Hasidim, light of grace. That half of Ze'ah and Malchut is now united with the big boys, with those sfirot where no light could enter. The desire does. The lower desire for a serious light of creation, that they need. But above, they did not need it. Ze'ah and Malchut, the upper part of Ze'ah and Malchut, lower part does though. Also with us is the same. Up to here from the top to our tabur, our navel, we can more or less correct ourselves, to behave ourselves, appearance, etc. But what is under there? Just as it is here, we are product of Ze'ah and Malchut. What is there under? Well, who can cope against it? Only through Kabbalah you will be able to cope, because there comes what is called devil. We gradually come in on a pure, clean way, and until September 2005, when we do all this in Zohar, then Zohar can help us. It's like an oven that brings up gold and takes down the rest, makes separation between gold and that, which is the whole point. Gold comes up means the light, which is good, comes up. but those others remain down there. Anything that can be corrected, theoretical and practical, we need to get it up. And the rest of what's left a little bit later on, a residue as in any oven, but that does not bother anymore. It will not want to penetrate you, excite you. Other things will excite you, but then we come to our fulfillment. Otherwise, it stays itches until your last breath. Even if you can't anymore, it remains itching, or of those butterflies in your stomach, hideous. By Kabbalah, we can endure all that. Not only endure, I can also convert it into good. It is awesome. What have we here? So the breaking of kilim, of course, because of the construction, the whole creation is built up so that, look at a great secret already. Here at Bina we have two. We have already had separation. Upstairs Keter to the lower Bina, let's say half of the Keter may receive and not the rest. That's just as it is written in Genesis. Light separated from this and create separation between this and that. Get the good out and leave the bad there. But that is not the intention, because even the bad, so-called bad, is also part of creation. How can something come from the Creator that is bad? You know? So what does he do now? According to the thoughts of the Creator, he has made it so that now the good piece, the piece of Zohar that was above the Parsa, where the light of Hasidim, of mercy, can come in, he has it, we're mixed that with what we call gvorot, severity. We're mixed and everything thundered down, and stay only the upper, because Keter had 10, but the 10 he had hang somewhere before the Parsa. That 10 of Keter, only half of Keter is preserved, but the second part of Keter also fell down in another Partsuf, but not under the Tabor. Here is the misery under the Parsa. There it is, not allowed. But what has become here now? The upper half of Keter remains, but the second half came in Abba Va'ima, the next. Abba Va'ima, the half, the bottom, what became of that. Thus, it has become. That from now on, it has become so that the higher, which is, as it were, half is above and half what now, after the breaking of the Kelim, is the bottom half, has fallen into the lower receipt. So let's say that is Keter, and Abba Ve'ima, and underneath is still. Later it comes also here, which is Za'ai Malchut. And this is then also for the half therein. That is very special. This was 10 Sferot, became 10, but only half may. The bottom is not broken at the Keter. Why not? It is above the Parsa, above the dividing line, and here on itself the light could be received. That's okay. And then also the other. Abba V'im also have the first half, which may exist because that also existed. Therefore, and the bottom half fell into the upper Ze'ah, in the Ze'ah. But with Ze'ah Malchut, there was havoc, real havoc. Why? Because in the lower part, it was not allowed to let the light enter. What is the result? Now, we see before it was, in Bina, above the Parsa was the good part, and below was the bad part. Upstairs was Keter, Chochma, Bina, Chesed, Tiferet, was light, and under the Parsa was darkness. There was no salvation for those lower, but the intention of the Creator is to let light come anywhere. Therefore, it is now. What happened now? This Keter, half of it, and Abba Ve'ima, who have not suffered so much from the ravages. Why? They're not broken, only have fallen down, as it were, fallen to the next stair, just that from below, let's say half has fallen down to a lower, thus became smaller, not 10 Sferot, but only half. But Ze'ah and Malchut are completely broken. And now, the whole point is what we must do. So that does not exist, as it were. That has fallen, and that has fallen under the Parsa, and what has fallen? The good part of Ze'ah, which was located above the Parsa, it has fallen down, and all mixed with the Kilim from below. Top Kilim is Keter, Chochma, Bina, and Tiferet, which are called Kilim of giving Kilim, and the Kilim under the Parsa are called the Kilim of receipt, which would like to receive, and the upper only want to receive. We also have that. From above, we want to give up to our navel, but from below, we just want to receive. And therefore, we must all learn this, how to correct it. Learning on the basis of what is in the instructions, but the application is always for yourself. It's always your kilim, your fulfillment. It's not that we say, follow me. It's not my belief, etc. We have no faith. You have your kilim of receipt, and you should build your kilim of giving, and you have to live with it. You have to bring it all in accordance with the higher powers. All work you need to do, all work you need to do, should you therefore be a Jew. Someone else. It's just working on yourself. Therefore, it is a transnational what we learn. It has nothing to do with nationalities. Jews have received it, but what is that? They must also do it themselves and give it to others. What is the next step? The next is again the same way. Everything goes up, everything just as with the fountain principle. Everything comes down to the bottom and then back up again. All the memories that were, everything, all that light, all those broken pieces, broken kilim, everything comes up from below those broken kilim to the tabur. Everything comes up, and therefrom comes now the world of correction. That is something with which that's the beginning of the correction, the beginning of the construction, reconstruction as it were. That is with which we have all the contact now. All hope is on us to bring us into line with the world of Absolute. And then it was built up from the broken, just very global. Later we will go into detail of what is left, was built up, Atik first from Keter. Keter will, as it were now, consist of two parts, Arichan Pin. The whole Keter had 10 Sfirot. We have seen that the second half has fallen down and now corrected everything. So the world of Absolute is made up of the best, creme de la creme. First, the creme de la creme of all that is broken, and everything that had been here in the previous built up, brought up in one way or another, and became Atik and Arichampin. The two names, Atik and Arichampin, and then, first Atik, first, what was left of the creme de la creme of less good things. Again, the best of poor. There was a reception, Arichampin it is called, and then from what was remaining, Abba Vayima was built, mother and father, and then Ze'ah was created. Ze'ah, which had fallen, was receptive, good for the light, so it was all built up there and pulled upwards, and also part of Malchut. Of that, Atik was then, let's say, half built, also from Arichampin, and from Abba Vayima, and Ze'ah, 6/10 were picked up from him, and from Malchut only 1/10 was collected. In Ze'ah 6/10 and in Malchut 1/10. The whole purpose of us is that we now, all that was broken here, especially the Ze'ah and Malchut, that we in the 6,000 years draw them up. The man has not yet been created, but it is like the breaking of kilim, the breaking of forces in the world and rebuilding of those forces in the world, and later comes man, because only man has everything in himself, both of what we have seen above the Parsah, where only the Hasidim, mercy may be received, as that piece from below, Gvorot. Thus man was created, because man is the inner part of the creation, and the worlds are the outer part of creation. Everything has inner and outer, as do we. Later we learn to discern those worlds, in particular to build Atzilut. The whole task of us will be to build all these worlds within us. Atzilut, half of everything, half of Atik, half of A'ah, half of Abba Vayima, and half of Ze'ah, which is roughly taken, and from Malchut, not half, we have said, and at the bottom we have made a place for Yetzirah, Bria, Asiyah, 3 worlds. So there under the Parsah, because the light should not come, there is the place of more worlds. What is the point? The goal is, it is very roughly what I'm telling you now, that after building from the side of creme de la creme of Atik, Abba Vayima, new names that we'll be using, and Za'ai Malchut, that's still below that of the breaking of those shards. Later we will tell you what shards of course, less good. Everything what is now brought above from Atzilut, only forces that are good forces. Everything you hear from the selection that is made now from the worlds of Atzilut, with the Atik, Abba Ve'ima, Ze'ah, and Malchut, which are all taken only from the good, but still remain at the bottom those shards which were good shards, but underneath were also shards which were mixed, good and evil, of those fragments that contain good and evil to varying degrees in different proportions. First the best was removed, and it became Bria. And Bria came from the place where 2/3 of Tiferet were, and Tiferet is already part of Binah. Bria is actually a piece of Binah. The bottom side of Binah, as it were, therefrom Bria was built up, of even heavier, where more evil, as it were, or more gvorot were, of these forces that has been built, Yetzirah. Yetzirah was built on the place where the Sfirot Netzach, Chod, and Yesod were. At that level, the world Yetzirah was built, and from the leftovers where Malchut was there, Asiyah was built. Atzilut is, let's say, almost 100%, only is not yet completely built, because under it are the things that need to be corrected. Bria, let's say, 90% mercy and 10% gvorot. 90% good and 10% bad. Yetzirah is about 50-50. 50% good and 50% evil, qua strings. And Asiyah is 90% evil, as it were, and what we call evil, and 10% good. And to our world came only what we call light. A very small light came to our world, which is not even spiritual. Everything we use is just to enable us to live, to exist, to give us a chance so that we do repentance. Repentance means to aspire upwards. That little light, that is with us. All the pleasure which humanity experiences in our world is nothing, but that little light, which is negligible compared to the lowest stair of Asiyah, our world also belong, as it were, as an extension of Asiyah, and the purpose is that we'll talk about this next time. What have we done now? We have the world Nekudim for the half. Small state means the half, and we have seen it come to full state of Nekudim and the breaking of Kelim. Then we have seen the emergence of the world of correction, save for the half, and below came the additional worlds, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah. Creation can now basically receive all light up to here, except, of course, there's something at the bottom. Not the whole Asiyah has been corrected, only the best things from it, and there below Asiyah is still the place of 14 Sfirot, where the so-called impure forces are. Next time, we will see how the birth was of the worlds, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. What I have drawn is how they are now after the breaking of the Kelim and the fall of Adam, what condition it was when they were first created. Bria was above the Parsah, and now it has fallen down by the sin of Adam. Please refer to drawing number 39, the structure of the spiritual worlds, in the written material.